Welcome to Island Baptist Church. Pastor Greg is teaching through the series called Great Conversions. Today we are covering part 17, titled, Who Happened to Paul?
I was at an amusement park when I was younger, much younger. I don't remember exactly how old I was, 8, 10, 12, in that age bracket. But I remember this, that it rained. It rained like all morning, rained all afternoon. It was like, we spent all this money, went to the amusement park, a bunch of stuff was closed, and then it got real. It got real good. Because see, what happened was the rain drove all the families away. And me and my buddy, all of a sudden it starts to dry out. They open up the roller coasters, and we're golden. Nobody there. We own the place. We ride the big ones. And there's lines for that one. And then come toward the end of the day, it's already getting there. They're going to shut down. We got to be out in an hour or so. And so we hit a roller coaster named the Mine Train. It was an older one. It was a smaller roller coaster. But there's nobody in line. So we get in line and we ride it. And then they make us get off. We had to run down and we would run up. And even before it would take off again, they would let us on. And after 2 or 3 times, they just said, just stay on. It's against the rules, but like nobody's in the park. And so we rode that thing, literally we were counting, it's like just a dozen times in a row. Just bang, bang, just getting shook up, having the time of our lives. And then my buddy taps out. He's like, I'm done. It's like, no, man, we got like 15 more minutes before we got to be back at the bus. And he's, no, I'm done. And so I decide I'm going to continue and I'm going to ride it a couple more times. And I do. But it just wasn't the same. I mean, it was good, but it's not the same when you do things alone. It's not always about the thing you do, but the people that you do it with. Am I right? You find that to be true? Now, I'm not talking about sinful things, that those things matter, but if you're doing good things in life, they're always more fun, they're always more meaningful, and they're always better if you do it with somebody. Today we're going to look at Paul's life. He's wrapping up his life. He's wrapping up his ministry in Acts chapter 28. And we're going to take a couple of verses and we're going to use them in a little different, unusual way. I'll explain it here in the middle. But Paul, we need to understand who he is, the guy we're going to be talking about this morning. Just a quick recap. He's not had an easy life. He has been on a missionary journey. He has a mission in mind. He's got a purpose and task that God has given him. And it's not been an easy life. He's had beatings, literal beatings. He's been in prison. He's been mocked and he's been stoned and left for dead. He has had to deal with lawyers. He's had to deal with some bad religious leaders. He's been shipwrecked. He's been snake bitten. And he's all in this bad situation. He's in prison right now. And he's only there because he won't shut up about Jesus. They keep on trying to shut him up, but all these bad things happen. These people coming against him, and he won't be quiet. He won't quit talking about Jesus. And he's on his travels while he's incarcerated. He's locked up. He's been to the island of Malta. He's been to Syracuse. And then on the last leg of Paul's journey, we're going to take this little section and we're going to look back at Paul's life. We're going to take it. This is a jumping point to see who happened to Paul. Not what happened to him. That's pretty clear. All these things have happened to him. But who happened to Paul? As we begin to get to our passage for today, verse 13 says that he went to this city called I practiced it. You know how bad I am with names. I'm just going to butcher it. Puteoli is where he goes. Luke, the writer of Acts, says, in this city, we found some brothers who invited us to spend a week with them. The we who's talking here is Luke is authoring it on behalf of Paul and the others who are traveling with them, even though they're in prison. It's a weird thing. And what we want to notice this thing, that they found, in this passage here, they found some place, and there's some brothers, and there's a period of time. There's some place, some brothers, and some time. Now the place is not really significant. I did some research on it. I found it to be not really very interesting or very pertinent. He's just passing through. He's a prisoner on a ship. They stopped there, and not much to say about the place. Some brothers, not a lot of detail there either. Just some random people. But Paul's group found them. If you look at the text there, we found some brothers. I don't know how hard they were looking or if they just happened to be there. And, oh, there they are. But they found some fellow believers, unidentified, no names, some unidentified dudes to show up. They show up in his life. There might be converts of Paul's from later previous missionary journeys, church members, we don't know. And they spend some period of time. How many of you guys went to camp this week? Or our last few weeks, all right? So there you go. 7 days. Oh, over here too. All right, good. 7 days, not very long, right? Unless you're the adult sponsor going to camp. And then 4 days, oh, that's how long it was. It can seem very long. But it's a short period of time. And Paul says, we found some brothers there. And then he goes to Rome in the next verse. And so we went to Rome in verse 15. The brothers there had heard that we were coming. And they traveled as far as the Forum of Appius and to the 3 taverns to meet us. Now, they're not the only people that traveled. There was some other brothers that came apparently from a shorter distance. But these guys made a definite effort. It is some 30 miles from the Appius and the 3 taverns to where Paul is. Now, 30 miles for us is, what, a 15-minute drive at 60? Some of you can't drive that slow, I know. It's a little shorter. But for them, that's a day's journey. 20 to 30 miles was considered a day's journey. And these guys here, Paul is stopping for a brief time in Rome, or they don't know how long he's going to be there. And they make the 30-mile trek, and they come to see him. They purposefully do that so that they can get to see Paul. Have you ever seen people make an effort to be in your life when you look back on your life? Some people went the extra mile to help you out. They did things that normal people wouldn't do. And they came just to see Paul, maybe as a leader. Maybe he has preached and somebody that got saved they know. Maybe they're there because they know Paul personally, and maybe it's just because he's a celebrity. Paul's like the super apostle. Everybody knows. He won't back down. He's working these miracles. All these good things happen. But I contend that looking at the life of Paul, that he's got friends and he's got fans because of who he is with the character. Because the flash in the pan stuff doesn't last, but a godly man and a manly man who's got character are hard to find. The Bible teaches us that Paul was a straight shooter. You like straight shooters, or you like people that beat around the bush? I tell you what, in the world, we got a whole bunch of people that they beat around the bush. We got a lot of people in the church that don't shoot you straight. There's too much of, well, that's your truth, and I'm going to honor that. And certainly we need to do that to a degree, but we need a little less of the ladies saying to each other, you go, girl, when you know where they're going is not a good thing. Don't say you go. And guys, quit holding the beverage for a guy who's going to do dumb things. I'm going to say, here, hold my beverage. And you're going to go, no, I'm not holding your beverage. What I'm going to do is I'm going to speak up, and I'm going to say, that's not a good thing. Because faithful are the wounds of a friend, but the kisses of an enemy are deceitful. Sometimes we just got to stand up, and I believe Paul is that kind of guy. What he taught in the New Testament, his 13 books he wrote, he's the kind of guy that's standing up for what's right. He's not bashing people, but he's not going to cuddle you. I think all we want is a little cuddle in church. We want a little coddling versus a challenge. Paul's saying, no, I'm not that kind of guy. And some people think Paul's rude. Some people look at Paul's life and they think that he's perhaps a mean, like a stern individual. I don't see him that way. You look at the books that he wrote, and he talks about being compassionate. His content's hard because it's straight from the Word. But I don't believe his delivery is that way. Not if he's living up to the things that he wrote. There's not room for rudeness in sharing the gospel. There's not room for being curt and being prideful and being boasting. Another version of Proverbs 27:6 says, a slap of a friend. Sometimes you just got to give them that wake-up call. I'm not advocating violence. It's a metaphorical slap, all right? Like, come on, dude, don't do that. Proverbs 28:23 says this, he who rebukes a man in the end, at the end of it all, will gain more favor than he who has the flattering tongue. Paul is anything but the flattering tongue. And so why should he have friends? Why should he have people that even care about his life? Because he's speaking the truth. and he's doing it in love. And we look back on Paul's journey, we can see the people that God brought into his life. And we can see, first of all, that there's some unchosen companions from the verses we looked at. Unchosen. He didn't choose these guys. They kind of showed up. God brought them into his life. Do you have unchosen people in your life? You look back, I hope you do. Paul's current life and his early life, he didn't really have any say in what happened early. What do we know about Paul's earliest life? Well, he didn't have control over his upbringing, but he was a Jew, and he was from the tribe of the Benjamin. He was a Roman citizen by birth, and that meant he had certain perks. The reason he gets to go to Rome is because he's a Roman citizen. He doesn't go through all this legal process in some small town, but he gets to go to the big guys in the big city. He had legal privileges. He had Roman citizenship, which suggests he also had some money in the bank. He was raised as a devout Jew, and he identified himself as a Pharisee, and he studied under one of the great teachers of the time, Gamaliel, which meant he had money in his pocket. And we don't know if he chose that. If his parents chose it for him, they required it from him. But we do know he got a great education. And this is who Paul is. And you look back at the people he didn't choose to be in his life, and they set these things up for what's about to happen in his whole life. How does that help us today? I want you to take a good look back at your life. Not at what happened, but who. Who got brought into your life. Yeah, you had some bad examples back there, but you also had some good ones. You learned from both of them. Parents, teachers, parents of a friend sometimes might be better than your own parents. Coaches, teachers, employers, co-workers. Paul had these early influences. He no say in it. He had these early experiences that he really didn't have much say in. But we all come to the point where we choose some people that come into our lives. Some of you made some bad choices at some time. And maybe even right now, you got some people that you've let into your close circle that are not good for you. At some point, we get to choose. And we need to choose wisely. Some of you guys, very few of you I know, are like me, that you love the classic great literature works. And I'm thinking particularly of one by Dr. Seuss, known as Hooper Humperdinck. How many of you guys know the story of Hooper Humperdinck? It just wasn't a very popular one. But it's a really good one. Hooper Humperdinck, well, the story's really not about Hooper. It's about the other guy with his hand there saying, no, you can't come. He's having a birthday party. And he's thinking about all the people he's going to invite. He's going to invite these people and those people and these twins and these quintuplets and all these people. But throughout the book he says, but not Hooper Humperdinck. I'm going to invite these people, but not Hooper Humperdinck. And he goes on and on through the whole thing. In life, the people that God brings into our life, sometimes you're just a little bit too picky. Now, I'm not talking about that close circle. You need to be close. You need to be careful with that close circle. But people come in your life, you're going, Hooper Humperdinck, not him. And as a kid, and even as an adult, there's me as a kid. I maybe looked a little like Hooper. But I felt like Hooper sometimes. I don't fit in. People are saying, not him, not him. And one of the great lines in the book says, not Hooper, he's a party pooper. And sometimes we feel that way. But here's the thing, as we look back at who God brought into our life, many times, the last chosen becomes the most valuable person in your life. I got friends that if I was just doing the math and doing a spreadsheet, they're not going to be my best friends. But God brings them into your life. You minister to them or they minister to you, and what happens? Man, you develop relationships you never thought you could have. And yeah, we need to be open to everybody we're helping out and helping up. We need to have this open door policy, and we need to not be pushing people out, and we need to be right there. We're not yoking up with them, because you can't travel the same direction when you're yoked. You got people that are doing things of the world. You can't do the things of God. You're going to pull them this way, or they're going to pull you that way. And when there's a choice, we need to choose wisely. He who walks with the wise grows wise, but the companion of fools suffers harms. You're going to get pulled away. I haven't always made good choices. I had periods of my life where I chose bad people, and sure enough, they took me down the wrong road. And chosen companions make a difference. Some are long-term, some are short-term, and Paul has some long-term people in his life. And the same is for you. We need to choose wisely. Throughout the book of Acts, Paul and Luke, they use the we language, saying we're together. Paul had a great guy. He had Luke that was by his side. He was blessed to have a friend. And if you have one friend, it doesn't have to be a bestie. We always wish we had the bestie, don't we? But sometimes you feel like Cooper, I don't really have a best friend. But if you have one or two people in your life that you can respect and go to and get advice from and share your life with, you are blessed. Paul had Luke. And perhaps that's the reason that Paul's not dead yet, because Luke's out there bidding on his behalf, being a good friend. It's a continuous friendship. They have it for a long period of time. They're ministering together. They're making bonds. And they have this list of companions that flow through their lives. And I want today, as part of your assignment, I want you to make a list. Perhaps not right now. Maybe mentally. I want to make a list of people God's brought into your life who grew into people that you ended up looking up to, that you were mentored by, that you served with. Companions, whether you chose them or not, people God brought into your life, and then you saw them begin to shape your life. I hope you've got a number of people on there. I hope that you develop that. You're going to find that I think there are many. And God's bringing those people into your life because as iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. And when you look at your life and you look at this verse, the question I have for you this morning is, are you the iron or are you the iron? Iron sharpens iron. When Kim and I first met, one of the things I remember that moved me in our meeting was that she had an electric pencil sharpener. Man, that was like way cool. I'm still grinding it out. I'm doing the manual thing. She had just sharpen your pencil. It's all good. Like, man, she's uptown. And whether you use the manual one or electric one, it's there for a purpose to sharpen. Are you the person who's sharpening other people? Are you the sharpener? Or are you the sharpenee? Your answer should be, I'm both. You should be always learning and saying, man, somebody's got to shape me. There's not quite to the image of Christ. And so, in another aspect, we need to say, I'm always looking out for people to help. If I'm only one step ahead, I'm still doing that. And if we identify too much as the sharpener, what happens is we could become arrogant. Like, oh, I'm just here to help people because I'm so good. That's not the right way. But sometimes we can say, I haven't learned enough. I can't help anybody. We don't do anything. And we miss out on the sharpen E or the sharpener side. We're not doing that. And sometimes when we sharpen people, happy things don't happen. Sparks begin to fly. Happened to Paul. Paul said to Barnabas, hey, let's go back and visit the brothers that were in our town, that we preached, and see how the word of the Lord is done in there and see how they're doing. They're following up. They had some real ministry. These two guys had some good stuff happen on there saying, let's go back and check on these people. Paul's saying, hey, Barnabas, me and you, let's do this. But it's not all peaches and cream when Barnabas decides that he wanted to take this other guy. Third party, third wheel. John Mark. Let's take John Mark with us. But Paul did not think it was a good idea. It wasn't wise because this guy, John Mark, had deserted them in Pamphylia and he'd not continued with us in our work. Wait a minute, this guy dropped the ball as far as I'm concerned. And all of a sudden, there's trouble in Apostleville. Oh, the Apostle Paul, like, this is not working real good. Mission Central has a problem. It's like, we got this missionary thing, and it's not happening. He doesn't give a reason why John Mark doesn't continue. I assume, and then you can get in trouble doing that, but my assumption is if it would have been doctrinal, that Paul would have addressed that. Luke would have addressed that. So to some degree, it's just basically that Paul wanted to do it one way, and this guy John Mark wants to do it a different way, and they can't agree. The word deserted might be a little bit too strong. In the Greek, it does have the idea of revolt. But here's the thing. Revolt is in the eyes of the beholder. Because if you do something I don't like, I tend to paint it black and white, good and bad. I think that's human nature. This is probably one of those grayscale areas. We don't know for sure. The King James, it just says they departed and they didn't go with him. And essentially, that he rejected Paul and Paul rejected him because they wouldn't do it their own way. And they had such a sharp disagreement that they parted company. Disagreement, they could not agree, and they said, we can't. You can't do it my way, I'm not going. Well, if you're going to do it your way, I'm not attending. And there's only 4 players. There's Barnabas, who ends up going with John Mark, and Paul ends up taking Silas, and they go a different direction because they can't get along. Have you seen the meme, the picture of the Get Along shirt? How many of you guys have seen the Get Along shirt? No? The kid, the kids aren't behaving at the house, and so mom or dad says, we're going to put you in the Get Along shirt. And they take one of dad's biggest double XL shirt, and they put it on. One kid puts his arm in one side, and the other kid puts his arm in the other side. And on the front it says, my Get Along shirt. And it's like, you're going to stay in that shirt until you can get along. And those pictures don't have happy, smiling people in them. Little kids are like, I don't want to get along. Sometimes we don't want to get along. We just want to get our way. But as believers, we got to learn to get along. Because if you can't get along, you can't go along. You can't go together unless you learn to get along. You got to learn to disagree and still get on. Paul had his missionary journey and he went with other people. But he found somebody new to take with him. When you do your ministry, don't do it alone. Bring somebody along. Yeah, I can cook a meal and take it across the street, but it's way better if I involve someone else and say, come, cook a meal with me. Let's go together. Ministry is always better together. Hitting that neighbor, fixing a toilet, guys. You're going to fix somebody's toilet. You could do that by yourself. Bring somebody. Do it together. Build some camaraderie. Build some ministry purpose together. Warren Wiersbe said this about John Mark and the Apostle Paul. He said, perhaps both men were too severe. Well, I know that later on that they did get it worked out. In 2 Timothy, Paul writes, only Luke is with me. Get Mark. Get this guy, John Mark, and bring him with me because he's helpful to me in my ministry. John Mark is traditionally understood to be the writer of the Gospel of Mark. He's not just some nobody. Luke, who writes the book that we're in, Luke wrote that book, and he also wrote the book of Luke, and the Apostle Paul wrote 13 books in the New Testament. And so these are big guns, but they can't get along. But they're sharpening each other, and we see as it plays out that they do get along, and they find a way to make things work. So we got short-term bright spots in our lives also. It's summertime, and I think back to when I was in high school, and all I had to do was make enough money to spend on me. It was kind of nice. It was a nice period of time. Just enough gas money to get ice creams, go to the fair, do stuff like that. It was a brief period, but it was very beautiful. It's that idea that you meet people and they're great to you, but you know the summer's going to be over quickly. Paul had some of those people in his life. The island of Malta, they were there for 3 months. There were some other places for 3 days. In some places, it seemed like people ran through and he got a couple hours with them. And as you look at your life, there are people that scroll through and roll through your life. And it's not about the amount of time you spend with them, it's about the meaningfulness of it. Our passage for today talked about some brothers. Paul says, who invited us to spend a week. And the brothers had heard that they were coming, and they traveled to meet us. And Paul says this, at the sight of these men, Paul thanked God, and he was encouraged. We look back at who happened to Paul, and you look back at who happened to you, and at just the right time, if you look with spiritual eyes, you'll see that God brought people into your life just to nudge you, and maybe just keep you from going over the cliff. Maybe it wasn't the aha moment, but it was just enough to help you stay in the game. And it's right on time. And Paul, the great apostle Paul, even the big dogs need encouragement. They need encouragement on the gospel level. Stay with the work God's given you. They need it on a personal level. You hang in there, don't give up. And just what you need will show up just when you need it. And He's going to do it through the people God brings into your life. Even if you don't know you need it. Because God uses relationships far and above everything else to shape and to encourage us in our walk. So who happened to Paul? There's a whole bunch of people. Here's a list. Let me rapid fire it to you. He was accompanied by Sopater, son of Pharis. You know I'm going to butcher these. From Berea, Art that guy from Secundus from Thessalonica, Gaius and Derbe and Timothy, and also Tychicus and Trophimus and the prophets of Asia. And you look elsewhere in the New Testament and we see that Paul had other people that happened to him. There was Barnabas, there was Silas, there was Luke, there was Apollos, there was Priscilla, Aquila, Titus, John Mark, Epaphras, and there were others. And most of those names don't mean a thing to you. When you finish your list, if you rapid fire it to me, those names aren't going to mean a thing to me. They'll mean something to you. Because you see, God brought them into your life. And among those on your list are going to be people that God brought not only just help on maybe a moral grounds and maybe with financial or all these other ways, but you're going to see some people that you respect spiritually. That God brought in, and you see them, whether they're chosen or unchosen, whether they're short-term, whether they're long-term, you see that God brought them all into your life, and I hope that you consider them as spiritual leaders and messengers. Because that's what God does. He brings people a step or two ahead of you into your life, and He moves you forward. Paul hung out with some big guns. In Galatians 1, it says that Paul hangs out with Peter and with James. We already mentioned some other big guys he hangs out with. But it doesn't matter the size in the eyes of the world. If they're leading you toward Jesus, they're big. And they're probably not angelic beings, and they're likely not going to cause you to hear the audible voice of God, but you know they're a godsend. So the challenge is to make that list. Because when you make that list and you check it twice, you're going to find out that they're the ones that make your journey meaningful. They're the ones that make your journey tolerable at some times. And I'll bet you're going to find yourself encouraged by the way God has provided for you. Who happened to Paul? Lots of people. One guy we happen to leave out on his list. Jesus happened to Paul. He was going the wrong direction. Jesus shows up. Paul changes and he goes in the right direction. He persecuted Jesus, and he comes to be a complete follower of Jesus. And on your list, I hope at the very top as you think about it, Jesus is the most important person on your list. Because when you put Him on your list and you make Him your Savior and your Lord, He puts you on His list. And who enters into the kingdom? Only those whose names are written in the Lamb's book of life. Those who come to Jesus, they're the ones who get written down and get entrance into heaven. Are you living in such a way that you're aware of your sharpening responsibilities? That you're trying to be on someone else's list? Not to pat yourself on the back, not to say, look at me, but to say, people need the same things that I needed, and I'm willing to live in such a way. Because let's face it, life's a roller coaster. It's ups and downs, and it's goods, it's bad, it's right, it's left, it's twisting everywhere it go. And it's not about the roller coaster, it's about the companion. It's not about the ride of life, but it's about the relationships that we have going through the life. And as we looked at what happened to Paul and we looked at what happened to you, we need to ask ourselves, who am I happening to? Who am I happening to? Who am I being there for? Who am I setting myself up to be on their list to say, this is a person I can trust. This is a person who will help me. I hope you'll establish that list, both of who's been there for you and God's brought into your life and those that you need to minister to. And when you do that, I challenge you, I encourage you to embrace the possibilities. Leave it wide open before the Lord and say yes to what He has for you. Pray with me if you will. God, I thank you for those who I could list and no one would care. You brought the names into my life. God, they were there to shape, to move, to mold, and sometimes, Lord, just to tolerate me. And I'm grateful that through them you showed me love. And God, they continued to point me to Jesus. And I pray, Lord, as we examine the list of provisions and people that you brought into our lives today, that you well up within our hearts, that we might want to do the same for other people. We thank you for the gift of salvation that comes for all who believe, and those yet to believe. I pray today, Lord, they might turn to you and say, Jesus, I need you in my life. I lay my life at your feet in service. However you want to speak, I pray that you'll start with me, Lord. Move in my heart, move in my life, move in my mind, that I might say yes to you as well as each of these other people that you brought here today. Bless us with your presence and your power as we have this brief time of invitation. We pray it in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thanks for visiting. Find us at www.islandbaptistchurch.org.